Hey guys, Flom here, bringing you another episode of Scoped Up. Today we'll be talking about Inferno. Inferno is probably one of my favorite maps to op on. A lot of the close range engagements really fit my playstyle and it's where I'm comfortable. Starting things off, we'll look at the CT side of Inferno first, and the first pick we'll go over is a banana peak, and the second is a little delayed mid peak. And we'll finish it off by looking at the multiple ways you can go for an early peak into the second or the alt mid at the start of the round. So starting things off, the banana peak, it's important that you have a great spawn because a lot of utility can be used against you at the start of the round, and being there quicker really just cuts down on that. There's two ways you can peek it: close to the wall, and there's the standard car peek. My preference is peeking close wall. It's a faster peek, it nets you a kill a lot quicker. However, the car peek does have its advantages. The biggest one, a lot of people don't understand how to molly car and the front wall, so if you pick up on their tendency, if they're mollying close or on the car, you should react appropriately. A lot of people tend to molly close to the wall and it will not end up hitting car, and it'll also give you an advantage to peek car because it'll give you a one-way behind the Molotov. Alright guys, the second peak we're going to be talking about today is the delayed mid peak. So if you are opping on arch side, this is a great way to give your team an advantage early into the round and really punish any sort of careless mid aggression that the terrorist team is showing you. So even though for the delayed mid peak, spawn doesn't matter, there are still some things that you want to do at the start of the round and you want to be ready for. The one thing that you want to be aware of is the other team throwing an early flash up mid that everybody throws. The way I counter this is by coming to mid backwards. I will sit in mid and I'll have my back turned looking at the wall, and this is to prevent me getting blind from any flash they throw at the start of the round. When I hear that flash go off, what I'll do is I will then turn and I'll peek mid. All I'm trying to do with this pick is try to counter anybody being really careless up mid, and or maybe they're running a fast route up mid. Now you can continue to peek on this angle and you can even peek into the underpass. I wouldn't ever really aggress past this point. This is right where you want to be scoped in at, because this is where if the terrorist does want to wide swing, he will get stuck here. This is the furthest he can go, and you'll know he'll be in a stop position. This pick into second mid works a lot better with a teammate throwing a flash for you, but it is not always needed. The things you need to be worried about when you go for this pick is when you are crossing mid, you need to be aware that if the oper spots you, they'll have a very good read on what you're doing, and you need to be ready for the enemy team to just be looking for you. The second thing you need to be really aware of is if the enemy team is mauling into balcony quite a bit or through the window at the start of the round to get boiler, this becomes an extremely risky pick and you probably shouldn't go for it. So with the best mid spawn guys, you want to just get as quickly as you can to boiler. You want to jump across and you want to make sure that no opera is peeking you. You come into the balcony and you peek into alt. So the final peak, guys, we're going to be discussing is something that is relatively aggressive, and it's really powerful because it's a very awkward timing. It's not at the very start of the round, but it's not too slow either. This is something where you want to communicate to your teammates that you're doing this, because if you have even one teammate in boiler, it can make all the difference if you get into trouble. This pick also is very sound dependent. When you go into this position, you need to be very aware of what you're hearing and be confident what you're hearing, and be ready to hit a close range shot. So while going for this pick into second mid and going aggressive on the T-apps, sound is extremely important. And there's two spots where I like to post up at. One is right at the end of halls before I start peeking into T-apps, and then obviously the last spot is at the end of the stairs peeking into T-apps. If you hear somebody up close, don't be afraid to scope in early and post up and wait for them to walk into you, because you might catch them a little bit off guard. If you don't hear anybody up close, don't be afraid to further push your advantage if you don't hear anybody, and get ready to take map control for your team and punish anybody holding far back. T-side Inferno is pretty unique. You don't always need an op on T-side. That's just because a lot of these defaults revolve around getting map control. However, that doesn't mean that the op can't be effective whatsoever. So the first peek, guys, that we're going to be going over is the mid walk peek. And the very last thing I'm going to show you guys is kind of how to deal with an oper at B that is giving your team a lot of trouble. Now, with this first pick in the mid, it's extremely spawn dependent. Don't go for it if you don't have the spawn. If you do, there's still some things you need to consider. If the other team is smoking off mid extremely early, don't bother. Don't waste your time. There's no need. Going for this early mid pick, you can peek either arch or boiler. It really is your preference. I prefer to peek under porch. I think it's a lot safer. If you have a misread on if the other team has an op or not, the arch side peek can get really dangerous without some utility used. So after your teammates get B control and you know that there's an oper on the other team, this is where you come into play and you become extremely powerful for your teammates. The riflers may have some difficulty handling the oper. It can be very hard to force them off certain angles without an op, and you can alleviate a lot of pressure for your teammates and make the other oper uncomfortable and maybe even get a kill. First things first, you can either throw this flash for yourself or you can have your teammate throw this flash. It's very simple. All you want to do is bounce it off the wall and it'll blind the CT player. So after your teammate throws the flash, all you want to do is give it a quick peek. Ideally, the other oper will be blind and you'll have a pretty free pick. The only thing is sometimes those opers will just take a shot, so you need to be a little careful. You could still just get spammed. It can be really frustrating, but it's a relatively safe peek. If your team is low on utility and you know the other oper is holding a very close peek from CT, you have the information from your teammates, one thing you can do is hit the enemy oper with a wide swing op peek. This is very dangerous though. This is only if you have great information and you're extremely confident with this peek. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna step out further than the angle and not just peek to close angle. The final thing that you can do for your team is if you know there's another oper on spools, or any player on spools for that matter, ask your teammate for a flash and just get ready to peek up over sandbags. This is the peek you want to do after you've already cleared CT, and maybe your teammate smoked CT for you as well, so you don't have to worry about it. And if they do try to make a play, they're running through a smoke and your teammate will kill them. After I know CT spawn is smoked and my teammates posted on it, I like to jump over the sandbags and post in this position, waiting for my teammate's flash. After my teammate's flash, I'll then peek and try my best to kill the spools guy. Well guys, that wraps up this episode of Scoped Up on Inferno. If you guys enjoyed this video, I appreciate it if you leave, a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel. You guys are awesome, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.